Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Thank you so much, all of you, for attending this afternoon. As you know, this is a very important time for Missouri Western State University. We have a candidate here today for our president position. Our candidate's name is Matthew Willson, and he's going to spend just a few moments giving us some ideas about, and I think the topic is up here, the role of an open enrollment public regional university in the community, in the region, and the state. So we will hear from him for a few minutes, and then we would like to take questions from the audience. There are a few of us that will have microphones, so if you have a question, please raise your hand and we will come to you with the microphone. We would like to be sure that you're on the microphone so that we can have this recorded and others can hear your question and hear then the response from Matthew. So we will move forward now, and I would like to introduce Matt Willson, who is a candidate for the president of Missouri Western State University.
So good afternoon, and it's truly a pleasure to be here in St. Joe's and to have this opportunity to talk to you about Missouri Western. And today I have a short period of time to talk to you about this topic, the role of an open enrollment regional public university in the community, the region, and the state. But before I get started with that, in the 15 minutes that I'm going to spend before opening it up, I just wanted to thank everybody on the search committee who's been involved with this. Thank all of you for the impact that you make on the university to make this great. I had an opportunity about a week and a half ago to secretly come onto campus and be my true role as a father of a prospective student. I do have my youngest who is a senior in high school, and to explore, to observe, to talk to students. And there truly is a magic here that makes it attractive. And I also think that there's a lot of potential in terms of being able to take this to the next level. And that segues into the topic that I've been assigned in terms of what is this role. And I've got probably more slides than I need, but I wanted to share some thoughts with you about what the role is going forward. You've had a storied history. You've made an impact on students that are here in the area, in the state, in the region, in the nation, and really have been able to transform lives. And it's an exciting thing to be in higher education. But if you look at the research that's out there today, there's a lot that will talk about how our economy is transforming and where we need to go as a society and the role that higher education plays. The research here in the state of Missouri shows that 66% of the workforce should have degrees from a higher education institution by 2020. Well, unfortunately, that's not going to happen because about 52% of the population have it right now. And if you think about technology, you think about artificial intelligence, you think about the jobs that exist today that didn't exist 5, 10, 15, even 20 years ago, it's a tall task that's ahead. But it's one that I believe that Missouri Western can play truly a special role in, as we not only attract people here, but most importantly, we help graduate folks from here as well. Fact, if you think about your regional universities, your student-centered regional universities are the backbone of education in the United States. More than 30% of university students are educated by regional universities. In fact, this is the best and possibly the only way to secure a degree. And I can tell you, having grown up in Salt Lake City, Utah, in a family that didn't have any money, some of you who have met with me today heard me recount the story of when I grew up, my parents taught me the benefit of having a degree in higher education, a college degree. But in the same breath, they told me, unfortunately, Matt, as the oldest of 6, and with my father not having a job that paid very much, that I was going to have to figure out how to finance that myself. And so my option was to go to my regional university. And it really turned out to be something that propelled me to a very interesting career around the world. I've spent 14 years in Japan. I've spent some time on a tropical island in the Western Pacific, about a year and a half, spent some time in the Philippines and in South Korea. And here in the United States, we have lived around the country. As my youngest son, James, who is that senior in high school that I used as a platform to talk to folks about Missouri Western, gets ready to move on, we're really excited about the next chapter in our life and making a commitment to a special place like Missouri Western and helping folks secure a degree, similar to my experience as well. Now, part of Missouri Western State is this idea of excellence, providing a quality education at an affordable price while continuously innovating to enhance learning outcomes and to prepare the students for a workplace. And how do you do that, right? What's the role? And we'll talk a little bit about what that might be. But if you think about it, right, one of the taglines that we have here at Missouri Western is this idea of everything is possible. And I agree that it is on an individual basis. From an institutional standpoint, though, you can't be everything to everyone. You need to be focused. And regional public universities should focus on sweet spots to empower students. Should also look for ways to innovate. One of the great things about a regional university is you're able to be nimble and to be able to pivot and be able to meet the needs of the workforce as well. And then another thing that I believe is really important that makes regional universities attractive and special is this idea of you're able to truly love the students. In my 15, 16 years as an educator, an administrator, and a leader in higher education, that has been my approach, is finding ways to love and impact the students, trying to get them through to achieve that goal, to transform them. Another part of what makes a regional university special is this idea of valuing every employee, being able to serve the community and to partner with industry in the locality, in the state, and in the nation as well. And Missouri Western can have this high impact. And I think that's really what the role is. If you think about it, you're expanding horizons. Education can truly be transformational. Foster the healthy workforce and drive the economy. And if you think about, working with the community, that's something that I believe is really important that should be done as well. As we look to move forward, this idea of educating talent for tomorrow, educating, training, instilling essential skills such as critical thinking, writing, collaboration, work ethic, communication, leadership, confidence, creativity, grit, and time management through a blend of liberal arts programs and also professional programs is key. In today's world of smartphones, where folks communicate with each other through text, they oftentimes forget how to talk, how to pick up the phone. They think that the search of knowledge is asking Siri, maybe talking to Alexa, maybe doing some type of a search. At our house, at least, every assumption gets questioned when my boys bring up some information. What makes it true? And I think that's one of the benefits of higher education is today, what news is real news versus fake news? What information is valid versus not? What does it take to go and discover the true answer? How do you solve problems? Siri and Alexa, they're not going to be able to solve your problems. Trust me, I tried 2 nights ago and it really didn't work. Innovation is something that I truly believe Missouri Western is something that you do, and it's something that you're even more capable of. Building on this strong foundation in the liberal arts while adapting and innovating in the name of career preparation to meet that innovation, that the evolving needs of the workplace is key. You can have a broader geographic impact through innovative measures, and I'm happy to talk about any of these in greater details during the Q&A. Also, you can seek creative avenues to embrace technology, artificial intelligence, and other advancements. In fact, if you think about the jobs that are going to be available in 5, 10, or 15 years, we probably can't even envision what they're going to be. Someone who works at a manufacturing company today, their jobs may be replaced by robotics. You think about truck drivers and the automation of driving. How long is it going to be when you have driverless trucks that are going across the country? Well, as a workplace, we need to be able to, provide folks to work in a transformed workplace. We've got folks that work as social media specialists. If you would have said that 15 or 20 years ago, no one would have known even what you meant. But today, trying to impact and disseminate information is truly key. And I think that's where this important pathway to a degree comes into play. And we need to be focusing on not only attracting students, but also retaining students as well. Now, part of this pathway to a degree, this pathway to excellence, is this idea of building bridges. You know, more traditional students need to advance to college. And I've got 51% of 88% that's out there, and you may not be familiar with these figures, but 88% of high school students here in Missouri graduate. Now, 88% in high school, that's not bad compared to other states. You know, you could always do better, but only 51% of those 88% actually go on to college at all. Now, out of that, how many graduate is even less than that. Well, that helps focus our mission in terms of making sure that the students of Missouri and even the surrounding regions are able to get that educational degree. Well, how do we contribute to doing that? Well, you can stick with the status quo, or you can take it to another level. And part of, I believe, the role of a regional university, and this is something as president that I would be honored and proud to do, is to trumpet the benefits of the four-year degree, of applied learning as we talk about it, of the things that we have here at MSWU, the charm of St. Joseph that has drawn us and attracted us to here, Missouri, and the benefits of the Midwest. And they're all abundant that are there. Another big thing, and this resonates with me having paid for my college education myself, is to provide an excellent education at an affordable price while balancing university needs and stable finances. Resources are always at a premium. How can you be creative? How can you generate additional funds without cutting into the academic core? That's something that, as a president, I would be honored to do, and I think well-equipped given the background that I actually bring as a university president, as a dean of a law school that was struggling, as a chief academic officer and chief administrative officer of a branch campus of a public university that's based in Japan as well. Degree completion, it's imperative. We need to find ways to eliminate barriers, particularly as we're talking about open enrollment, open access, to make sure that students are equipped with the tools to do that. Special programs in the summer. Additional funding and financing is needed, but that's part of presidential responsibility is to get that done. We need to find ways to facilitate success and to improve completion rates. That feeling of community, students knowing that they have the support, trying to find different avenues to do that are keys to the success of regional universities in the future. And there are different things. You can reduce financial hurdles. One of the things as president of the University of Akron that I was able to shepherd and to lead through was a new scholarship system to enhance retention. What we found at the University of Akron was many of our students were working 2, 3, or 4 jobs. They would have to drop out because they didn't have enough money. Some students would lose their scholarships because they were working so much and their GPA would drop below a 3.0. So the Akron Guarantee Scholarship is something that's new and innovative. It guarantees that a student will not lose their scholarship while they're at the University of Akron, so long as they're in good academic standing. But the best thing about this is it actually encourages students to get done and to complete and to actually go on time. So a degree that's 120 credits, when they get 30 credits, they get an automatic upgrade to their scholarship of $1,500. When they hit 60 credits, they get another automatic upgrade of $1,000. When they hit 90 credits, they get another upgrade of $1,000. So when they're a senior and finances and resources are less and less for that student and their families, they'll have $3,500 more in scholarship assistance than they did when they first came into the University of Akron. It's one way to be creative financially to help our students get through. Non-academic support. Those are things that we went out to Foundation and we actually got a grant to help our students. So when their car breaks down or they have to go to the dentist or maybe they have an emergency surgery, that we have funds as a university to help the students cover those gaps that typically don't fall within financial aid. Having that message, talking about the impact of getting students done was something that resonated with the foundation where we were able to get the $350,000 grant. Enhancing academic and support, enabling opportunities, thinking about creative ways to facilitate applied learning. We implemented something during my tenure as president of the University of Akron called 5-Star Fridays. The idea was we were going to create a magical day on Friday. We were going to have classes meet Monday through Thursday, same amount of time during the week in terms of classroom contact and the amount of time to study, but Fridays was going to be a no-conflict zone where our students could do internships, where they could do company visits, where they could do externships, where maybe they could get involved with service projects in the community. On the university campus, we could have special undergraduate research activities. Our biology faculty, they could do a mentoring program for freshman students that they'd always wanted to do, but there were always conflicts. Trying to drive students onto our campus to create something that was vibrant and keep them here on campus was something that was important. So we've got activities through our clubs, through our career services that happen on Fridays to make this 5-Star Friday experience. And it's something that's distinctive, and it's something that has highlighted the benefits of the University of Akron in a very crowded environment, and it's drawn students to the university. Been seeking partnerships with community and industry are key, and happy to talk about those if anybody has any questions about that as well. But really, as we talk about education, we want to have access, we also want to have quality, and we also want to have excellence. That is going to sustain regional universities for the future. If you don't have the quality, it's going to be very difficult to attract the students and retain those students. And so what do? Well, we need to have this commitment to chiseling potential into a more capable state through collaboration, vision, dedication, and determination. And as you do that, you can move that needle forward. Applied learning. Find ways to increase student motivation, foster student-centered instruction, and provide real-world applications. One of my sessions today, I've been interviewing with folks and talking nonstop since 7:15 this morning. One of the questions was, as we talk about applied learning and real-world applications here at Missouri Western, the state has deemed you the applied learning capital of Missouri, or University of Missouri. But what do you do that's unique and distinctive, that's different and apart from other universities? I think that's a question that we need to ask going forward is what can we do? Can you do creative things that take things on a different scale? The University of Akron, I put that challenge out to my faculty to do something different, something that was distinct and unique that other universities didn't have. Why? It attracts students, retains students, it opens minds. One of our departments responded by putting together a 4-university simultaneous course that happens to be in 4 countries and on 4 continents at the same time. So University in Akron, one in France, one in Brazil, and one in South Africa have a course on presidential politics that our students can be there, interact with students around the world without traveling, hear from experts in South Africa and Brazil about the challenges that they have to their presidency. You can do unique practical things like that that are learning without breaking the bank. Those are things as a regional university going forward that we need to be doing. Engagement, extracurricular and activities, enhancing and sustaining vibrant, active, engaged, inclusive, and a safe campus culture. Those are things that we need to be talking about as well. The engagement is something that benefits students. The research shows that as students are engaged, the likelihood that they're going to graduate goes up. Have you ever thought about maybe developing a transcript that goes beyond just the grades? What if you had a transcript that was more like a portfolio, that talked about the leadership opportunities that a student had engaged in? It talks about study away experiences that somebody has. It talks about their internships and their externships. If that was listed on a transcript that students carry around for the rest of their lives, how distinctive would that be if we had a degree plus that was here at Missouri Western? Just some different ideas to be thinking about and discussing as we move forward to be distinctive. The idea of focusing on student success, having that student-focused culture centered around impacting student success. I love the strategic plan here that talks about every employer being an educator. It's so true. As I was president of the University of Akron, one of the things that I loved to do was town hall meetings with every single department. My custodial staff, they were a little shocked when the president scheduled a meeting for 4:30 in the morning, but I wanted to hear their feedback. I wanted them to be part of it because the custodial staff, they make a difference. They help it be a welcoming place. stewardship. We also need to make sure that as a regional university, we achieve a solid financial foundation while exploring new avenues and creative solutions to maintain this foundation. And you can do that through existing programs, but also adapting and having some creative and innovative measures to get things done as well, all in the name of excellence. Experience. Experience is another thing that regional universities need to make sure they continue to do. This experience on campus through athletics and making sure that we're using athletics not only to train and educate our student athletes, which is really important, to give them the leadership experiences that they need, but also to bring folks together as a community. We need to have the music and the arts highlighted and the different events that they have be part of the campus culture for everyone to enjoy. Clubs, events, feeling of community and family. It's something at the University of Akron that we've started to highlight with in the world of esports. We brought in this online video game program that we can talk about and the excitement that that's generated, not only playing video games, but watching video games. And beyond that, the academic inroads in terms of this multi-billion-dollar industry that's now focused on by ESPN and by TNT and by different folks around the country. We have 1,000 people participating in our esports program now 1 semester in. It's attracted students who want to go into this industry beyond and above just doing something a little bit different. Friday nights on our campus used to be deserted. In our esports arena, it's amazing. You can walk in on a Friday night and you'll see 200, 250 students that are there participating in these events. You need to be responsive and flexible. One of the things as a university, and I think as a university president, that's really important is to listen, to promptly respond, and to be adaptable, have flexible offerings and the like. Diverse and expanding student body pool. Traditional students, the demographics are different. It's shrinking. So how do you best serve the needs of non-traditional students, military, first generation, traditionally disadvantaged, non-resident and international students? Working on inclusion and diversity, having that experience, having an open mind that challenges preconceptions and enables discussions, facilitates growth and learning is something that as a regional university we can do even better. And global. Having grown up in Salt Lake City, Utah, having no interest in anything that was international, I happened to find myself on the frozen tundra of Japan in Hokkaido. It was so cold and the snow was so deep that today seems just like a lamb, and my experience in Hokkaido seems like a lion, right, along those lines. But it was interesting because as a high school student, I thought that I knew everything. I volunteered to do some missionary work for my church, and before you know it, my church has sent me to a land where I'm uncomfortable. I don't speak the language very well. The food, the rice, the raw fish, it was something that I never envisioned that I would eat. I hated rice. I was a meat and potatoes kid. But I'll tell you, walking around and serving others and talking to folks from another culture truly taught me that there are so many benefits of being inclusive, exploring what's out there in the world. Similarities and also differences, solutions to potential problems, great ideas. And I think here we've got the opportunity with additional resources, which I would be able to bring in to attract inbound international students and also to have more students study away and to do languages as well. So having that experience, making it unique and distinctive, something that is going to empower our students going forward is really important. Distinctiveness is another role of regional universities. This idea of strengthening quality programs, knowing what we're good at, finding greater opportunities in terms of applied learning, and finding new niches and expanding reach. This cutting-edge balance with existing areas of excellence is something that a regional university can do. Now, we should constantly remember that serving others is the greatest career in the world. That's why I'm here today. That's why I'm talking about Missouri Western, is together with you being able to go and serve. And I've just got a few highlights of our time at the University of Akron and some of the things that we have been able to do to try and make an impact, because it's truly about the students. It's truly about empowering them. It's about the community. It's about supporting you as staff and faculty and administrators so that you can do your job, so that you can serve others and that you can make an impact in the world. So thank you again for allowing me to come in, and with that I would love to open up the floor to any questions that you might have, and I'll do my best to answer your questions.
to say my name or anything? Okay. I would like to hear briefly, and I know this will be from a higher level, about your perspective on inclusion and accessibility for students, faculty, staff, and community with disabilities.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much for that question. If you don't mind, I'm going to get a little less formal here and come down where the light isn't blurring it out. I'm seeing spots at this point in time, so we'll try and make it work. I mean, in terms of inclusion and accessibility issues, truly I believe that that's one of the areas that any university, particularly regional universities, can do a great job in. We all learn from each other. I truly believe that a university like this that draws on state support is something that should be open and available to everyone. And that we need to find a way to make sure that it is accessible, that we do have opportunities for everyone so that you can go out and others can go out and really make their impact in the world. And I truly believe that it's something that we learn a lot from. And we can all learn from one another the more that we open the doors and the things that we do.
Hi. So we've identified that there's a gross disconnect between the downtown culture and the campus culture. And that as Missouri Western is sort of a suitcase campus, it's really hard for non-traditional students to hang out and stay and engage in campus life and campus culture. As I understand it, Akron U is a downtown campus. And we, as people have said before, go to school on a national park. How would you posit engaging with the different communities within the city to try and bridge that gap?
Okay. No, it's a great question. And it's interesting, at the University of Akron, we are a downtown campus, but there's a divide. There's train tracks that run through the middle of the city. And you would think that you needed a passport to go across the train tracks, right? And so, it's interesting, the similarities between, Missouri Western and the University of Akron are just striking to me. And that gives, I think, some insight, because I've been thinking about these issues for the years that I've been at the University of Akron. And we've been trying to find ways to bring community and campus together. And I think a big part of that here, and being on a national park is not a bad thing, by the way. You just need to be a little more creative in terms of how you get that done, right? So here, there's been a push, and I know you have, what is it, third Thursdays when there's discounts to try and get folks downtown. We took it a little step further, and again, we're just right across the street, but we can't get our students to go off campus and go downtown. One of the foundations in town, we talked about what we might be able to do to integrate those things together. And that's been a push over the last 2 or 3 years. And instead of doing discounts, our students actually can get free meals, free ice cream cones, free things sponsored by this foundation downtown to try and drive them downtown. We've tried to set up, different activities that will draw our students downtown. So I alluded to esports, right, the video gaming. Part of what we did was we were a big integral part of a new incubator in downtown Akron called Bounce. Downtown Akron is trying to reinvent itself, to try and make it an attraction for folks to come down. I don't know if you guys have heard this story before, but it's playing out in Ohio, in Akron, in addition to here as well. And so what we did was we talked and said, look, we'll help get the money from the state, bring it through the university. We want to try and drive our students downtown, so let's do an esports arena downtown in this entrepreneur hub and this maker space to get our students down there. You guys can use it. Hopefully that'll even drive in some video game businesses as well. In addition, let's put a cybersecurity lab in there, because one of the new degrees that we rolled out was cybersecurity. And that hopefully will drive traffic from downtown as well. We've had talks in terms of building bicycle paths. There was an epic fail. They actually took out one of the lanes of the main street to make it a bike path between the university and downtown. It just absolutely failed. In fact, everybody was upset that they lost a lane of traffic, so that didn't work. We pulled that out to get that done. But it's really that kind of constant, innovation, and it's having the communication. It's trying to find ways. I could see, using the College of Art and Music, to maybe rent some space downtown and have impromptu, concerts or even some theater stuff, in a downtown setting. Trying to figure out ways to get the community here on campus through different events. Because you've got the culture here, right? You've got the athletics here. You know, you've got the national park here, so we should be using the national park. Maybe we can have a fishing competition in the trout pond, right? I'll be the lead on that and show people how to fish if they don't know how to do that, right? But it really is kind of that I think that creativeness, that innovation, that commitment, because we're all busy. But there's so much to be gained from that. And there's also, as you talk about, you know, the non-traditional students, I think there needs to be, you know, a concerted approach in terms of what do you do? How do you do it? Can you deliver a program in a different model than we have done before? You know, could you do a Monday through Thursday traditional schedule and use Friday, Saturday, and Sunday to do special programs where your non-traditional students would actually come onto campus, right? And to make it more vibrant that way. So I think those discussions and those thoughts, you know, those are different things that can be explored to try and get that done. So we also do scavenger hunts, by the way, but you know, that's another range. So scavenger hunts downtown for prizes, that seems to work pretty good too.
One of the things that you mentioned was having broader geographic impact through innovative measures, and I was just wondering if you could elaborate on that point.
Sure, absolutely. You know, in terms of broader geographic impact, I think it can be done in various ways, right? I mean, one is the traditional approaches and tapping into markets that maybe we haven't before. With your identity being distinctive, right, getting your message out in terms of who you are and why Missouri Western should be a destination as opposed to an afterthought is really where you need to be going. And oftentimes it's a matter of just getting in front of people. And you can do that creatively as well. You know, as president of the University of Akron, I experienced the same thing in Akron. You know, we draw just really from Akron and around that way, even in Cleveland, which is only 45 minutes away, it was very tough to get students to come. And so we sat down and talked about, okay, what might we be able to do? That person-to-person contact is really invaluable. So as president, my first 18 months, I actually visited probably 110 to 120 high schools, together with our admissions folks, talking with principals, talking with guidance counselors, and asking the question, what can we do for you? And oh, by the way, as we're building this bridge, let us tell you about some of the great programs and initiatives that are going on at the University of Akron. We were able to get into high schools that our admissions folks, they would barely even pick up the phone because why would their students consider the University of Akron? We started to get folks on our campus. That was part of some fundraising that we did, and we got folks to come on, actually spend the night, guidance counselors on our campus. That was something that, you know, worked quite well. Trying to find ways to recruit in different areas that, you know, might be suitable. You know, that's something that we did. We actually enhanced our admissions staff. That was one of the investments that we made in some very difficult times at Akron to get them on the road. So sending them to Pittsburgh, sending them to Chicago with a targeted message of this is what we do well, this is why you should come to the University of Akron. So you've got some opportunities and abilities to do there. International is another one where, you know, international recruiting, I think that bringing some more international students onto campus is something that's not only doable, but it enhances your diversity and enriches the student body that you have. And it's a down market right now because a lot of universities are going, well, it's difficult to recruit international students. In my mindset, it's the perfect time to pounce because other people are going back. There are always going to be students that want to come to the United States. Here, and kind of going back to the downtown urban campus, it's a lot safer here in St. Joe's than it actually is in Akron. And we're seeing our international students actually go up, right? And you've got a great place where people are supportive to try and get it done that way. There's also, in the world of online education and non-traditional students, I think different avenues that can be tapped into. You've got military and veterans that, you know, should be an even greater focus. You know, you do a good job here. I think you can even do a better job. The non-traditional students, thinking of different ways to deliver the education, that's something that can attract folks, whether it's from Kansas City, whether it's from St. Louis or around, in terms of maybe even coming here to pursue those type of things as well. So just some examples for you in terms of some ideas and what we might be able to do going forward. Thanks.
Good morning. Good afternoon, as it were. It's my morning, it seems like.
Long day.
Very long day. My name is Jay Foodie. I'm a veteran, and you segued right to me perfectly. I We didn't plan this, honest.
I'll pay you on the way out. So.
But as a veteran, all of our veterans are obviously non-traditional students as well, and we have some special needs and requirements, but we're also, I think, an under-tapped resource. We're student leaders, we've been there, done that, and we have seemingly a lack of voice on campus, and I was wondering what your thoughts were of how to serve the needs of the veteran population, help us to be more successful here at Missouri Western.
Mm-hmm. No, I mean, it's a great question. I do think that it needs to be an area of focus. One of the things that we did at the University of Akron was we looked for ways to empower our veterans. And it was interesting, having and inviting folks in. I'm all about accessibility, so you'll find out, call me crazy if you want, that I actually distribute my cell phone number to anybody that wants it. I've never had anybody abuse it, including students. But, when there's real a need, that accessibility will enable and facilitate communication. And so the veterans on our campus were a little frustrated, and we had conversations about what the needs were and what we might be able to do. And it was fun sitting down with our veterans group and brainstorming about how they could get involved and watching them get involved. We actually went out and created a special veterans space, not one but two on our campus, to make sure that their needs were served in that capacity. Had different events that the Office of the President supported as well, and really talked about, from a veteran standpoint, what do we need to help you complete your degree, number one, but number two, as you've discovered this place, what can you do to help us attract even more, students along those lines too. So, I would hope coming on in, having that focus, and we must have been on the same wavelength here, being able to make that an even higher priority in terms of serving the veterans community, making sure that the transition is smooth, and that we're doing everything possible to help the veterans community. So, thank you. Yes.
Well, good afternoon. I really don't need a mic. I'm kind of loud to begin with. My question is, I'm a former athlete of Missouri Western, and a lot of us in here always want to know what the president's going to do from a stand up. How do we improve our athletics and get more dollars into the budget to support athletics? Because that's always a driving force at schools. A lot of presidents come in and they seem to always want to deplete those. I know several of your slides talked about athletics and extracurricular things. So what would you do to help promote us to become a more financially stable athletic department?
Sure, absolutely. No, and I was going to take the first part of your question, what can you do for athletics? And I was going to suggest I still have 4 years of eligibility left, and I'll play basketball for you.
I'm a football guy.
So, I mean, in terms of athletics, right, and I'm coming from an institution that, is Division I. It runs probably about a $25 million deficit every year in athletics. So, every student, out of their tuition and fees, probably $1,200 per student goes towards athletics. There's a huge debate on our campus, particularly from the faculty, and others just saying, well, that's unreasonable. Even some of the students saying, why are we investing in athletics? What can we do to overcome that? And that's one of those things, I think, as an experienced president, having, been involved really with athletics from a funding standpoint, from a budgetary standpoint, from a support standpoint, that hopefully would make me an even more attractive candidate for here, is, we've explored that, we've talked about it, and we've looked for different avenues to get it done. Now, every university is going to be different, right? And if you've got programs, you want to go back to one of my slides, you want to be excellent, right? And where you come in, whether it's academics, whether it's staff, whether it's student programs, whether it's athletics, whatever it is, if you cut, then you run the risk of undermining excellence, right? So everything that a president can do, I think, is to try and move down that road. So among a very difficult situation where we had a $30 million operating deficit, or a shortfall is probably a better way to say it, during year one of my presidency, projected year two, $46 million deficit. Year 3, $55 million deficit. And oh, by the way, they were projecting that the University of Akron would be out of cash in February, like last month. It's not. And part of it is being creative and coming up with creative things. For those of you that haven't heard it, the University of Akron during my first year, with a lot of creative things that we did, we eliminated $30 million of debt and we put $12 million in our financial reserves. Year 2, and it's supposed to be $46 million, we started with 29 because of some permanent adjustments. We ended up losing like $3 million. So over 2 years, $76 million projected loss. We ended up with $9 million extra in the bank, and I added 2 sports, or the university did. Now, I advocated for it, and part of it was coming up with some creative options in terms of financing. Not to say that the same thing would work here, but there are different avenues that you can do. I mean, one is by fundraising, right? And getting donations that'll cover the expenses that you have. Another thing is just being creative. And I'll give you the University of Akron example, and it was different here, but just to give you a window into my thinking and mindset was, well, let's add baseball. The university president that was dismissed before I was catapulted in the presidency, he had cut baseball. He had laid off 250 staff and administrators. He said he was closing down the university press. He wanted to change the name of the university. He didn't have a lot of fans, as you might imagine. Said he was closing down to outside forces our fine arts performing center, that was there as well. And so as I walked in, or actually as I was dropped into the presidency, everybody said, so when are you bringing back baseball? And I said, well, when we have money. Well, when is that going to be? And I said, well, I've got all these figures that are swimming around in my head, and we're really awash in red. I don't know if that will ever be the case. But if you look at things differently and you're a little bit creative, what we decided to do is to have a completely different model than what you'll see with other Division I teams. And so as we looked at how we might gain more resources for the University of Akron, discovered that at the university, well, in the state of Ohio, if you have in-state students, for every in-state student who completes a class, you get X amount of money. For every in-state student who graduates, you get Y amount of money. And student athletes who come in, because of a whole host of factors, they're actually graduating and completing classes. And so if we were to have a baseball program with 40 or 50 male student athletes, and if we had a women's lacrosse team with 40 or 50 female student athletes, and we limited our recruiting to the state of Ohio, that actually would bring in a lot of money. Instead of doing university resources for scholarships, if we said, you know what, we're adding as opposed to subtracting, which makes people feel really good, you need to help us out, or we need your help, then we can actually go out and get some scholarship dollars. And so we saw the donors who had been reluctant to contribute before saying, you know what, we see the value of this, and they were actually helping us pay for that. We also were talking about being frugal in terms of what we paid for coaches, giving opportunities as opposed to runaway salaries that you might see at the Division I level. And before you know it, we have the third baseman for the Cincinnati Reds, all-star Chris Sabo, who wants to coach a Division I team. And so now we've got a Major League Baseball player who will be coaching baseball at the University of Akron. And we've got people that stepped up, just had a donation this week, $1 million for the field to turn it into artificial turf because our baseball field looks like yours. It's under snow that's actually there. And we've had folks come in and start to donate as well. So I think a lot of it is attitude. I think a lot of it is approach. Part of it is creativity. Our baseball program at the University of Akron, the way that it's structured, it'll actually bring in an additional $250,000 a year to the university, and that's without a paying fan. If we have any paying fans that'll come in, that will be extra. Same thing with women's lacrosse. And we're using, the same things. Women's lacrosse, you can do it in the football stadium. So we don't need, extra facilities to get that done. So I do think that there's a lot of creativity to get that done, to balance, so that we're making sure that there's a bridge between athletics and academics, and we're making sure that we're assisting on both ends. And hopefully that just gives you an idea into my mindset about creatively approaching potential problems that are out there, actual problems.
Second question I have, if you guys don't mind. Diversity on campus for professors and stuff. I'm a graduate of Missouri Western, love this place. And so we've always had not very many minority instructors on
Okay.
What would you do about bringing more minorities into the teaching field?
So, I think that needs to be the mindset, right? It needs to be a priority. Having lived in a, diverse world since my trip into Japan, right? I came back to the United States. I met my wife, Noriko. She's Japanese. We've lived around the world. We have biracial children. We've lived in some areas where we haven't necessarily felt included. It's an area of sensitivity to me. And I do think that, as a leader, the tone gets set at the top, right? And it's not only words, but it has to be actions as well. So as president of the University of Akron, in this environment where we didn't have any money, I thought it was very important to make a statement and went out and hired a chief diversity officer. Not only hired her away from Columbia College, but also made her part of the president's senior cabinet. So she was part of that team. And what we did was we started to double down in terms of the type of programming that we had, the initiatives that were out there to create this culture of understanding of, having diverse faculty, having diverse staff and administration is something of importance to get it done along those lines. And so, as president, you will see a sensitivity there and also an understanding of the importance not only with faculty, but with staff and with students to try and make it an even more diverse and inclusive place.
Hello. I'm Corporal Laws with the police department. I supervise all the police officers that we have. You briefly touched on your PowerPoint presentation, the Safe Campus, especially after the Sandy Hook incidents, Virginia Tech. Could you expand on what your philosophy and policy would be on campus safety and like a police department?
Sure, absolutely. Having the campus environment, you've got to have safe spaces. And when you talk about safe spaces, when you're in the classroom, having, diverse viewpoints, right? Having that feeling of inclusion. That's part of the safety that I think about. But going above and beyond that, you want to make sure that your students are protected, that they feel safe. That, you have that environment that's here where they can focus on their studies. They don't need to necessarily focus on their safety. Having come from the University of Akron, that's huge because we're an urban campus in an environment that isn't very desirable at all. In fact, you could buy a house across the street from the campus for like $30,000, which tells you a lot about, the environment in which, the university is. And we're always worried about, different things that are there. And so, your police force, you need to make sure that you've got the staffing in place. You need to be working together, I think, with the city in terms of what I've seen. You need to always be having that educational component and training for staff. And maybe that's part of my attorney background and trying to foresee problems. But, our police at the University of Akron constantly conducted training, for the different departments, for the folks, making sure that your buildings have ample security. And it's not only from 8 to 5, but making sure that there are safe spaces above and beyond that. There needs to be a comprehensive plan to the extent that you don't have one that makes sure that things are protected, that we're doing everything possible in terms of prevention, right, preparation, and then also response as well.
Hi. Well, sorry. I know you already answered questions about inclusivity, but I was wondering if you could address ADA concerns specifically. Yeah, that's all.
So in terms of ADA concerns, as you talk about ADA, one of the challenges, and I'm just shooting in the dark here, right? One of the challenges, I believe, in buildings that were built in the 1960s, the 1970s, and even the 1980s, the laws were different. And the way that they're constructed can be, a hindrance, and they can be obstacles as well. And I do think that, Missouri Western, as we move forward here, you've got facilities that, need to be updated. And that needs to be something that's prioritized for access, for student comfort, making sure that in today's educational environment, that things are different than they used to be. And so that needs to be a priority. And it was something that, I dealt with a lot at the University of Akron, starting with the law school when I was dean, but also then, transitioning in. Oftentimes to make those shifts in a public institution, it's tough, it's expensive, but, if it's something that is on the front of your mind and you're moving forward, I think it's something where we can make a lot of inways there too. So thank you.
Right here is the
Hi.
Oh, hi.
I'm a retired former faculty senate president. My question has to do with your approach to the state legislative and financial situation. We all know we're in an era where there is a decrease in funding for public higher education. A lot of the arguments of the past decades in favor of the importance of public higher education and its importance have been lost. Could you say something about your general approach to how to address that issue? I think it's especially sensitive for us here at Missouri Western because we feel that we're an institution that has historically been underfunded in the state system.
You know, and it's a great point. You know, Missouri really is not any different than the state of Ohio. And you know, we've got similar things in terms of, number one, a lot of universities. And the University of Akron, for instance, it's certainly not Ohio State. You know, it's not the University of Cincinnati. We even have a campus that, you know, Kent State University, that's twice our size. It's only 17 or 18 miles away from us. And so, you know, there's a lot of challenges in terms of competition for dollars, right, among the state. And then also getting the message out to the politicians about this is the value of public higher education, and this is where your investment needs to be. And as president, you know, that needs to be done not only at the State House and constantly there, but I also believe it needs to be done in community circles. And we've had a lot of discussion in Ohio among university presidents about how do you get the message out about the value of higher education in general. Because a lot of the legislators, at least in Ohio, they seem to be going in different directions, right? Or at the end of the day, when you get to the budget, seems like it's easiest to cut education, and so, you know, what do you do at that point in time? And so I do think that you need to be constantly, you know, hammering that message home, but you also need to get some community champions who are also talking to the politicians as well, helping them understand that, hey, you know, they're dependent on different donors for campaign contributions. Well, these donors, they're very supportive of higher education as well, and it needs to be a priority. So that was another approach that we used at Akron, was going through our supporters who also happen to be donors to other political campaigns, to get that message across. Another thing was being very public with this is the value of higher education, and talking to mayors, talking to community groups, and that's something as a president that you can get done as well. Also, in terms of that value and different things that you might be able to do there as well. I think that there are opportunities to try and find ways to get creative even with your state government. You know, if you're talking about things to be funded, if you're doing things that are distinctive from the other universities, then that's something that might open up doors to funding. And I've seen that at the University of Akron with some of the programs that we have done that have resonated with, you know, different legislators that are there, and becoming partners. I think oftentimes your politicians in higher ed today are at odds. You know, how do you find ways to come together? One of my approaches as president, and it was interesting going into the State House in Columbus and talking with some of our legislators, they're so used to be asking things from everyone that I kind of flipped the table. And as I went in and introduced myself as the new president of the University of Akron, my question was, as a university, what can we do for you and your constituents? And it was interesting watching the politicians kind of break down, because it was like, you're actually asking me, you know, what as a university you can do to serve my constituencies. And it led to some great conversations, and it also led to some extra funding down the road as well. So it's a large picture. It's something, or it's a large topic. It's a large problem. It's something that you can't ignore. It's something you need to continually address. You need to be creative, I think, in terms of the messaging. But it needs to come from beyond the walls of the university, and it needs to come from the community who gets behind you, that carries that message to the state legislature, so you continue to get that funding. Otherwise, you're just looking at, you know, tuition increases in terms of trying to pay for the educational services, the quality and the excellence that we need to be providing. So thanks for that question.
As a major employer here in the community, I was particularly impressed when you were talking about your 5-Star Fridays. because we're a big believer in internships, co-ops, and all the things that we can do to where the product that you're producing here or will produce, and you did it at the University of Akron, is the future of our companies. And, but with that said, I want to move, and to the point you would like to comment on that is fine, but to my real question, when you were the president of a 4-year university, and yet how did you interact with community colleges, and did you consider them to be partners or rivals?
Oh, great question. So in terms of partners versus rivals, the term that I would use was we were competitively cooperative. So, that's a major topic of discussion. And you'll find out I'm very direct, and anything that you ask, you're going to get an answer, and it's going to be straight. One of the concerns that I have about community colleges is their graduation rate. So we have a community college that before my tenure, started to move in right across the street from the University of Akron. Their graduation rate is 8%. In an ideal world, I would love to have students who aren't prepared to come to the University of Akron start at the community college, come on in better prepared, because that's going to mean fewer resources in terms of supporting the students. But if I can't get 92% of the students out the door, it's a concern. And so that's one reality that needs to be addressed. Now, another part of that is you're competing for state dollars. Right? If the education system is structured such that you're competing, there's that necessary evil in terms of not working together. But at the same time, if you can come together and find ways to work and have those avenues, I think it's going to be a win-win for everyone, so long as the students are coming out of the community college. So one thing that I did was, and this is Stark State University, Para Jones, who's the president of Stark State, and we had regular conversations about what we might be able to do to facilitate the transition of students from community college to the university. And one of the ideas was that we wanted to get the community college students onto our campus. And we wanted to have them in our library, using our library. We wanted them to come to our sporting events. We wanted them to come and to enjoy our symphony and our bands and our choirs and our plays and the things like that. So we started to talk about that. We also talked about shared services to save the university money. So they're right across the street. So going back to your police thing, maybe Stark State, the community college, could pay us for the police protection. Maybe we could have an office at the front as you walk into the community college building of our advisor so that we could make that work. Maybe we could even do dual admission, and when a student is admitted to Stark State College, they would automatically be admitted to the University of Akron. And so instead of having to do all the paperwork after, we would be able to track them. If they stopped out at Stark State College, maybe we could get that done. We also thought about offering the Akron Guarantee Scholarship to Stark State students. So as long as they had 1 year of college, they could come in and get into these automatic upgrades in terms of the scholarships. Those were conversations that were initiated. All of those things that I talked about are now in play, and they're done with Stark State College. We'll see how it turns out, but it's something that we've been trying to do in terms of admitting students, tracking them, being able to communicate and correspond with them, to encourage them to get done quickly, to come to the University of Akron and take advantage of our guaranteed scholarships that do the upgrade. So I do think that there are ways to talk together. Another thing as president is we initiated talks between Kent State University, Youngstown State University, and Cleveland State University about what we might be able to do to achieve some efficiencies. So our CFOs started to talk about back office stuff. Our provost started to talk about different programs that we might be able to do jointly, share professors, those type of things. And then the presidents were talking about, what we might be able to do together. Those are difficult conversations because you've got so many silos between universities. But those were things that we were talking about and making some inroads. Whether they'll go anywhere, we'll see. But that's going to be a longer process going forward.
It's glad to hear so the international education conversation was included on your presentation. Now, it is true the number of international students are decreasing all over the United States, and the number of international students are going to a different country. We are competing not only the United States university, but the university in Canada, New Zealand, or Australia, or so on. Now, can you share some first step you can do for increasing number of international students on campus?
Sure. You know, in terms of increasing international students, you know, what I have found is international student recruiting is all about personal relationships. And as you develop these personal relationships, and this is something, you know, having been involved with Temple University's Japan campus, we actually were in Japan recruiting for an American university, so it was kind of reverse. How do you get US students to go to Tokyo? You know, we looked at different markets, and so we actually started to make great inroads out of Southeast Asia, out of the Middle East, to bring students to Tokyo to get an American education, which is kind of an interesting take. But we saw enormous growth in terms of the personal relationships that we were able to form. And you can do that by having a good international recruitment team. That was something at the University of Akron, put together an international center, 3 different pillars. One was international student recruitment, so inbound. Another part of it was outbound, you know, having global engagement department and having study away and different, you know, university agreements. And then the other part of it was international scholars and, you know, making sure that they were covered and we were bringing them in as well. We put together a team of 3 that I think is now 4. And in a down market, as, you know, other international students are going everywhere, University of Akron started really from the base. We didn't have a lot of undergraduate students. You know, unless we were paying students on the graduate side, you know, full rides to come, they really weren't coming. Now we're seeing major uptakes comparatively in international students. Last I heard from our chief recruiter, we were up 57% in our international students coming into the University of Akron. So, big part of that is finding folks who are in the know, who have done the international recruitment, looking at different markets that would be attractive to Missouri Western. The price point here, the value, the community, I think are all great selling points. You know, as you're talking to parents, they want to be comfortable with a university that cares. The university this size, I actually think, is a great selling point in terms of how to get that done. I also think that drawing on existing relationships in different countries, you know, that can open doors as well. And so, you know, my experience in Japan and South Korea and China and Vietnam opened doors for the University of Akron to attract not only undergraduate students, but graduate students. And that's something that could be done as well. So your international recruitment team, new international agreements, maybe a re-envisioned approach and not knowing what you're doing right now in terms of where you're targeting. I think that there are, you know, different opportunities to make inroads there and really make this a vibrant destination, and you've got everything in place to get it done.
I think we have time for one more question, if we have one. Here.
Hello again. So you had mentioned earlier regarding applied learning. And when you are encouraging students to engage in applied learning for something like nursing or business, there are clear inroads as to what they can do as far as internships are concerned and where those jobs are. How would you recommend not disproportionately affecting students who do less clear programs like humanities or social sciences? How it's clear that we'll favor nursing, say, okay, you're going to get your job. How do you provide opportunities for those that are a little bit more, less accessible?
Okay. Yeah, no, it's a great question. You know, I think it's a question that needs to be addressed at, you know, the department level and the college level in terms of what you do for those type of opportunities that are there. But there's also an opportunity, I think, with, let's say, the humanities and the social sciences. You know, someone who has an English degree, Asian studies, me, political science, right? You know, those type of things. To really have those hands-on real-world experiences, it's just a matter of taking the time, stepping back and going, okay, what do you want those to be? Right? Going back to, I talked about that you know, 4-continent, 4-nation, 4-university course. That's something taught in social sciences, cross-listed in humanities, where you've got that type of an opportunity where you can really engage. And you can have a different type of educational experience inside of the classroom that's kind of practical and it's hands-on. In our honors program, for instance, I'm taking a group of 20 undergraduate students to Japan in a couple of weeks. Something that we're drawing from all different majors, but there's a component in that in terms of cross-border dispute that we're using, and we're getting students outside of the normal classroom. And there's a classroom component, but then we've got a week in Japan. They'll actually be in Japanese court. They don't understand Japanese, but we'll translate it for them in terms of how to get it done. And then give them different scenarios and have them meet with people to structure, okay, this is what you need to do to solve a problem that might be encountered by a U.S. manufacturer who is operating overseas. And so it really is at your faculty level and at your department level where this creativity and this innovation needs to come up for those areas that you're talking about. You can make it work on an international scale, on a global scale. It's one of those things, kind of going back to the 5-Star Friday, that we've tried to amp up at the University of Akron, is to have all departments encourage them to find different ways to engage and to have out-of-classroom experiences that are hopefully out-of-world experiences, right, that would make that impact. And so I think having that commitment, having that designation, having someone come in and kind of circle back and go, okay, what are we doing to make this work, both inside and outside the classroom, is something that is key in all of the disciplines that you have here on campus. Thanks.
Okay, well, thank you very much for your questions and your attendance today, and let's thank Matt Willson.
Thank you. Have a great afternoon. Stay warm, and look forward to hopefully interacting with you again soon.